one tip I would say to anyone is when telling your story, write it down, perfect it, but practice it in front of a screen, practice it in front of a mirror, see how you would come across. And until the point where you say, I will hire myself, you might not be ready. So do that as quickly as you can. Find friends, find families who can give you that feedback, because there are stats, and I can't remember exactly the number, but people reject you in the first 5 minutes because they ask you that one killer question, tell me about you. And you should be ready to say, this is my moment. This is my chance to tell you how incredible I am without trying to sound like I'm incredible, because of your story and experiences you've had from childhood to today.
Welcome to Control Your Career, a podcast to help you conquer uncertainty, shatter imposter syndrome, and rise above the expectations imposed by others. My name is Julia Toothaker, and I am the career coach and strategist at Ride the Tide Collective, my career development company, where I offer career coaching courses, and I have a plethora of free content. I have been doing this work for well over a decade, and I want to help empower professionals like you find clarity, navigate your career with intention, and help you advance in your career in alignment with your unique personality, preferences, and values. This podcast is a great place to start your journey toward controlling your career. I'm bringing back the ever-popular Recruiter's Perspective theme for Season 11 with a new group of recruiters and talent acquisition professionals to help you understand the hiring process from their lens. We'll be digging into resume and interview tips, talking about how the ATS works, looking at the history of the job market, and we'll be tackling hot button topics in recruiting and hiring. This is going to be a season full of great advice, tips, and uncovering the truth about the hiring process from those who are on the front lines of hiring. Find this episode and more at ridethetidecollective.com and connect with me on LinkedIn, where I post career information and inspiration to help you control your career. Welcome, everyone. We are back with another episode. And once again, I'm so excited for my guests today. And we're tackling a topic that I think it's going to hit deep for some people. We're going to be touching on failure in the job search and what that could look like and how we can move past it. So my guest today is Danny Cohen, and he is the president at Rock Search. And I'm so excited to have you here, Danny, because we met last year at an event that Rock Search actually put on. They brought in a bunch of different experts in different areas and did this free panel for people. It was absolutely amazing. So I love the work that y'all are doing over at Rock Search, and I'm so happy that you get to be a guest today.
Thank you, Julia. And it's lovely to be here.
Yeah. So I want you to do your introduction, because I know that you have a pretty long history, and I want to make sure that you get to talk about that. So if you could give us an idea of your background, what got you into doing this type of work, and let us know.
Love it. Thank you. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Northwest London, raised by a single parent mother who is a queen, who's just an amazing, amazing human being. She raised two young boys. My brother's a little bit older than me. And we lived in London, but I think around 11 years old, I had to go to boarding school. It was an all-inclusive boarding school. Sorry, not an all-inclusive. It was an all expenses paid, because I got a full scholarship both on sports and education. I wouldn't suggest for 1 second I would ever was going to be a sports person or a professor, but it allowed her to be able to survive in the tough world that she was. She was a manicurist, and we don't know our fathers. So grew up in boarding school in Oxford, loved it. At 16, the school actually closed down, really weird circumstances. It was one of the most expensive schools in Europe. One of the kids was leaving, their parents was thought, I'm not going to put any money in. School closed down, and the rest is history. So about 16 years old, from 18, I got in quite a bit of trouble, as young kids do. And then at 18, got very fortunate. One of my friends realized that he thought, well, you seem to like people. You seem to hold good conversations. You seem like you've got a lot of energy. Maybe you could do recruitment, because I had no degree. And at that time, recruitment was very much like, well, if you don't have a degree, there are opportunities for those who work hard and have some common sense. So at 18, I met this guy called Ian Henson, and it was a sliding doors moment. He got me 3 interviews, 3 offers. But I remember really well, I couldn't afford to get the train ticket to the actual interview at a company called Huxley. And he said, listen, here's the money. This will change your life. He claimed that he didn't make as much money on the fee. I'm in recruitment now. I don't know if I believe that, but he was such a good guy. I hope so. Got the interview, took the job, and started working at what was the fastest growing staffing company in the UK. Quite a known entity in the industry. I joined as one of the first recruiters for everything outside the UK. I actually got 2 offers, one to do London banking, but they also said, hey, we're going to be opening up in Amsterdam. I thought it was no brainer. I'd love to do that. Worked there for 20 years, eventually moved to Amsterdam after 5 years, was what you call the worst recruiter in history in my first 6 months. Really worked hard, but didn't really listen. And then stumbled across a bank that eventually 5 years later was the fastest growing and largest account in the history of the organization. I think that took the time I left the company, which was after 20 years. And I worked there from London to then eventually Amsterdam at 23. And then at 32, I got the big phone call to come to United States of America. And when I first moved out, being privileged, I started to give back to the communities I really felt I felt was needed. And that was women in my STEM areas. So I set up an organization called Breaking the Glass, which was to create pathways for women in tech specifically. And it just opened up doors and opened up my eyes to the fact that you can make a difference. You can give back just by giving time and my knowledge, so to speak. After 20 years, then moved to another organization, another large staffing company. But then 2 years ago, I spoke to someone I've known for years who had an American business, and he gave me the opportunity to come over, which was Rock Search, as the president. And recently we set up another business within the group called One Life Science. So I'm now group president of these 2 divisions, whilst also contributing to WICT as the DEI director. I'm still an advisor for technology for Austin Community College. And I'm involved here and there in quite a few things, and obviously blessed to be able to talk to someone like you, Julia, today about maybe some stuff will come out that's good to your audience.
Oh my gosh, Danny, I had no idea about your background. So that's even new to me. And I love hearing that. And I think even for listeners, hearing your story and how you came up through the business and all of that, I think that's just something that's helpful for people in this day and age and what's going on right now. And I think especially when we talk about degrees and do you need a degree to be successful and all of that. And I came out of, college career services. So that was something that was like, yeah, you need a degree. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of opportunities for people regardless of that. And so I love being able to hear that side of it. And then all the good work that you're doing, giving back to the community. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that you actually were the one that started that organization. That's absolutely amazing. I love hearing that.
Thank you, Gina. Cheers.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more, because I want to set some context for listeners about Rock Search and what they do, because that's not, you guys are a search firm. You're not like an in-house. So can you give a little bit more context to what you all recruit for and all that?
Oh, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I've been in the recruitment space coming up to 25 years. It's been a pretty incredible journey. I started out as an 18-year-old, as an entry-level recruiter, fresh-faced, eager to learn. And over the years, worked my way up to, as I mentioned, serving as the group president of Rock Search and One Life Science. Rock Search is a global recruitment firm headquartered in the UK. We have offices across Europe, but I lead our operations in the US, where we've expanded into Austin, New York, San Diego, and recently with One Life Science over in LA. So what started as a vision for me to build something in the recruitment world, something truly people first, has grown into reality. Rock Search is a company I'm extremely proud to lead and be part of. The growth we've had has been driven by staying true to our values, investing in our people, and always putting relationships at the heart of everything we do. At Rock Search, we specifically focus and specialize in 4 core verticals: technology, both for contractors and full-time hires, the same for civil engineering, the same for accountancy and finance, and the same for now life sciences. Each of these sectors had its own dedicated team of both account managers, business developers, as well as recruiters, who literally their only job is to find the best candidates in those verticals. And they truly and deeply understand their markets, which allows us to move really quickly and strategically for our clients and candidates, because usually when they're hiring, we've already got the candidates. On the life sciences side, as I mentioned, we operate through our specialist brand One Life Science, or OLS, where we support pharma, biotech and med tech companies with critical hires across clinical ops, regulatory affairs, research and development, and many, many more. Whether we're helping scale a venture-backed biotech or placing a technical lead on a civil infrastructure project, our mission is always the same: deliver exceptional talent with a consultative long-term approach. At the end of the day, recruitment is a people business. So for us, it's about building relationships, solving problems, and creating opportunities both for our customers and those who work here. And that's what keeps me energized, even after 2 decades in the industry.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, because I definitely think that sets the context for what you're doing and where you hire and all of that. So I want to dive into a little bit more depth and nitty gritty when it comes to hiring, because especially because you are hiring across so many verticals, I want people to understand kind of what's happening, what you're looking for, and what the process is. So let's first talk ATS. Is this something that RockSearch uses for their system? Are they using the company's system? Like, what is your hand in all of that?
Yeah. So we work with a recruitment CRM ATS system, which I think a lot of people do use, and it's called Bullhorn. So absolutely, it's a core part of our tech stack and really helps us stay organized, efficient, responsive, especially given the volume and pace we work at across multiple sectors and locations. So that being said, while the technology is so important, it is only as good as the people using it. We see Bullhorn as a tool that supports our recruiters, not one that replaces the human element. We still prioritize having real conversations, understanding our candidates beyond just what's on their resume, and delivering a consultative experience to both sides of the hiring process. So yes, we leverage Bullhorn heavily for tracking, screening, communication, as we have quite a lot of people who work here, to keeping them real time and up to date. But we never let the tech stack take away from the personal, relationship driven approach that RockSearch is known for.
I love that. There's so much talk around ATS right now, and a lot of negativity around it and a lot of people speaking negatively around it. But I think one of the themes that I've heard throughout this season, talking to other recruitment professionals, is it is a tool. That is the one thing we're hearing over and over again. It is a tool. It does not replace the human. And so I love that you're reinforcing that even more from the other guests that I have. So I really appreciate that. And then from the search firm side, is it similar in that you all will post jobs on your site that you're recruiting for, and then you collect resumes the same way that like an in-house recruiter would? Is that process very similar?
Yeah, I mean, we post on both our websites, on certain various sites that we know have a lot of eyes and ears looking. LinkedIn is obviously our greatest tool to finding candidates, but that's more searching for the talent. Because posting an advert is great, but it's also quite a reactive tool. Whereas where we've really tried to teach our staff, our recruiters, is by having a proactive process from start of the job to filling the actual position. And we tend to try to find 3 to 5 resumes per job within 24 hours. Obviously, we know there's a lot of people applying. So sometimes it's quite hard to see the resume unless it's already working on our system and part of our portfolio. So one thing I'd say to anyone who's looking is don't wait just for the application. Go out, reach out to recruiters, go out and find out where you believe the jobs are, because we job spot ourselves to try to find customers. And we'll see a post on LinkedIn, and we will try to identify the hiring manager to send the resume direct. That's what I would advise everyone if that's what they're seeing on job posts right now. Because I was on a panel for Austin Women in Technology at Innotech recently. 75% of resumes never get seen by the human eye.
Oh, I hate hearing that. I hate hearing that. Okay, well, let's take that statistic and go into my next question because I feel like this is very relevant. What are your top resume tips? How can people get their resume seen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Because one of my biggest passions outside of work is offering free resume reviews and career consulting. So over the years, I've probably reviewed about 1,000 resumes, and I've noticed a few things that consistently make a strong impression. So here are my top 3 tips. Keep it clear and concise. This might sound basic, but it's crucial. A study by Ladders found that recruiters spend an average of just 6 to 8 seconds scanning a resume before deciding it's worth a closer look. That's not much time, so make it count. I give this tip all the time. You can't make a first impression twice. So try to be really clear because a recruiter will move on to the next one. You can do this by using clean formatting, bullet points, white space, avoid big walls of text, and make sure the top third of your resume, what's often seen first without scrolling, showcases your most impactful work. Your summary and about section is your hook, elevator pitch. Make it compelling, relevant, and skimmable. Number 2, tailor it to the role if you're sending out your resume. Don't tailor it so much that they look at your LinkedIn and think you're completely different. No 2 jobs are exactly the same. So your resume shouldn't be either. So customize it to match the specific job description. Highlight the most relevant experience, skills, and keywords. Tools like ChatGPT can help here. Paste your resume and the job posting and ask it to point out alignment or recommended edits. This is especially important in technical or highly regulated fields like life sciences or engineering, which we trade in, or technology, where hiring managers are scanning for industry-specific language and proof that you actually understand the space. And my final tip is quantify your impact. So don't just say what you did, show what you achieved. Nothing's been louder than buzzwords. Numbers speak louder than buzzwords. So whether it's boosting sales, improving efficiencies, cutting costs, or right sizing, or managing multiple projects, add measurable outcomes wherever possible. So 3 examples: managed a team of 8 and improved productivity by 20% in 6 months. Oversaw 5 plus concurrent projects leading to a 15% increase in revenue, or reduced onboarding time by 30% through process improvements. So when you quantify your results, you're not just listing duties, you're telling a story of impact.
Oh my gosh, Danny, I love all of that. That that aligns so much with what I tell clients, with what I'm hearing from other recruiters. I think that's absolutely spot on. I love that you give away resume reviews and things for free. That's so kind. I think there are a lot of people out there that I've seen have been doing that, especially in this market. And so I think that's just a great, resource that you offer as well. Does Rock Search have resources for resumes and how to improve that on their website?
I don't know per se on the website. So
Okay.
I'll give you where I brought this into the business. I was part of the San Diego Tech Hub board, and it was because of need from the community to help those who were either career pivoting, first-time job seekers, and it just spiraled to a point where we created a name called Hire Me, HIGHER, uplift and upskill people to get a job. So it born from that. And also there was someone who worked with me, a very close friend to this day, called Jacob Silverman, and he had a downtime of hiring for the organization. So he started doing this. And what shocked me is how many people need this help. But what shocked me is why was I so shocked? Because just because I'm a recruiter, I know how to do this.
Right.
99.9999% of people are not in my industry or in my job. So how should they know? So for me, when I look back at my mum and who'd never had that support or help, just by being there and giving someone that guidance or support goes a long way. 2 examples in the last 24 hours. One was a lady who, I'll mention her name because I posted about her on LinkedIn, called Stephanie Gonzalez. I did this resume review, but instead she actually said she's going through a financial situation and she needs to find a property by Friday. By posting this on the market, she's had inundated hits. I spoke to someone again yesterday. It was a follow-up call, and her first minute, she goes, "I'd just like to apologize for crying on our first call." And I'm like, don't ever apologize for being vulnerable and open. I really appreciate how important it is for you to find that right job. So for me, I do it. I have a 4-step program. I do it for free because I want to give back and I want to help those. I've never looked for anything in return. Sometimes people reach out and go, I've got another friend who's looking for help. I love it. And in a very, very rare occasion, someone goes, I'm now hiring. Can you help me? And those are my favorite ones because it's then true karma. Trust
Right.
me, don't worry. It's not that I'm doing anything for the sake of doing it. I'm doing it because I enjoy trying to be the change I think we all should see in this world.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And I want to go back to something that you said about LinkedIn and tailoring your resume.
Yeah.
You had talked about tailoring your resume, but not so much that it doesn't match your LinkedIn. One of the things that I suggest to clients, and I'd love to know if, this would align with what you would say as well, is there should be kind of that primary function that you're going after first, right? So the most ideal function, and kind of make sure that everything is aligned to that. Make sure that your LinkedIn is aligned, your resume is aligned, and all of that. If you're not getting hits in that primary focus, then we start to make some adjustments and move away, or, change and tweak some things here and there so that it aligns with some other different types of
Yeah.
roles. But I try so hard to get people focused, especially on LinkedIn, with job titles and their content, because I feel like they're trying to throw so much into it that it doesn't tell a story of what
Yeah.
they can actually do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's by being specialist, it's by being something really niche that is in demand. Some people go too niche to the point where there isn't actually a market there or enough jobs. So you want to try to look at where the biggest supply is or the biggest demand is so you can supply to that. So I really agree with what you're saying. What I do add to people is, look, when you're actually in front of people, getting your foot in the door is the next step, and having 80% of your story always the same, but then tailoring it specifically for the person in front of you. So 2 examples are, if it's a startup and you do 80% of your story, you talk about who you are, the strengths, the resiliences, the experiences, the accomplishments, etc. But have it relative and make it relevant. So, hi, and the reason why I'm so excited to speak to you today is because I want to get involved in a startup. I want to get involved at the ground zero. I want to be involved in not only this, but help out. Whereas if you're focused on a bigger company, you go, I want to be a true expert working with the best brains in society. So I think for me, you are 100% spot on. But I think what you're right is people get so desperate, that they're like, oh, I'll do anything. And then people are like, don't know if I want a desperate person, I want an expert.
Yes. Okay. We're going to come back to that because that's going to be a theme a little bit later. But I want to talk about that articulation. So let's talk about interviews. I think this is an area, even though I know people are struggling to get interviews right now, this is also an area where I think, to your point earlier, people don't have a lot of practice doing it. They don't know how to frame questions, or answers to questions. They get nervous, all of that. So what are your top interview tips for applicants?
I love it. Do your research first thing. Before any interview, take time to understand who the company is, what they do, and ideally who you'll be speaking with. LinkedIn gives you enough about that person to create commonality, show genuine interest, and respect for their time. According to Career Builder survey, I love factoids, so you're going to hear loads. I just love them because no matter what fluff I might say, they back it up a little bit more. So according to Career Builder survey, 47% of hiring managers, nearly half of the hiring managers, said they would not offer a job to a candidate who had little knowledge of the company. So bonus tip, try connecting with the hiring manager or LinkedIn before or after your interview. Then follow up with a personalized thank you note. Mention something specific that stood out from the conversation. It's a small gesture that can leave a lasting impression. And I love that sort of stuff personally. Second, come prepared with examples. When answering a situational or behavioral question, I always recommend using the STAR method. So what's the situation at hand? Tasks you had to handle, and the actions you took and the results of that action. Now, if you failed in that result or that action, talk about your experiences and what you learned from it. If you succeeded, talk about the impact it had. It's one of the most effective ways to communicate your experience clearly and confidently. And again, research from LinkedIn shows, as I said, around 50% of hiring managers say storytelling during interviews makes candidates more memorable because they remember the story. They visualize. It's like a trailer to a film. Use real, relevant stories about how you have solved problems and drive results. This paints a full picture, not just a bullet point. And the final one, be yourself. Your story is your power. Skills matter, but cultural fit and authenticity matter just as much. Share your journey, the challenges you've overcome, because people relate to that. They've walked in those shoes before. The value, excuse me, the value that drives you and what brought you to this point. Hiring managers aren't just evaluating your qualifications. They can see that on the resume. They're imagining working with you. In fact, a report by Leadership IQ found that 90% or 89% of hiring failures are due to poor cultural fits, not a lack of hard skills. So be real, be coachable, and show your enthusiasm, your energy, self-awareness, and personality will and can set you apart just as much as your resume will do.
Yeah, I love that you're sharing this because I think so often people get so nervous in the interview process, especially if they've been rejected so many times before, and that desperation starts to show through versus who they actually are, you know, and what they bring to the table. And I know that it's hard. I know people are going to hear that and be like, but I am desperate and I don't, you know, I'm tired and I just want to get the job. I hear that. But also you have to take a step back and figure out how to calm yourself down throughout the interview process so that you can show who you truly are. And I think too, we talk about showing up and we talk about personality. That doesn't mean showing up as somebody who you aren't. Right? Like I'm very direct. I'm a very direct communicator and I show that through an interview. I don't try to be this like really exuberant personality or something like that. I'm not an extrovert. That's not going to come through in the interview. And so I think it's important for people to understand it's okay to just to show up as you and show that.
Julia, can I just add something there? One thing I try to ask people to do is write down your story from the beginning. Not just your story as your experience. It's what I try to do when I introduce myself is like, I am who I am because of the product and the environment I came from. And I use it as a catalyst of change and a positive enforcement of my life. But I think one tip I would say to anyone is when telling your story, write it down, perfect it, but practice it in front of a screen, practice it in front of a mirror, see how you would come across. And until the point where you say, I will hire myself, you might not be ready. So do that as quickly as you can. Find friends, find families who can give you that feedback because there are stats, and I can't remember exactly the number, but people reject you in the first 5 minutes because they ask you that one killer question, tell me about you. And you should be ready to say, this is my moment. This is my chance to tell you how incredible I am without trying to sound like I'm incredible because of your story and the experiences you've had from childhood to today.
Yes, yes. Julia here. Are you feeling stuck in your career, unsure of how to break through to the next level? I'm excited to share a transformative opportunity, the Career Advancement Intensive. It's a focused one-day experience designed specifically for ambitious professionals ready to define their career path. In this immersive session, you'll work one-on-one with me to help you gain fresh insights into your professional strengths and uncover opportunities for growth. Together, you'll clarify your goals, refine your personal brand, and develop a strategic roadmap tailored to your unique aspirations. Imagine leaving the day with renewed confidence, a clear vision of your next steps, and practical actions you can implement immediately. As a bonus, you'll receive additional resources, tools to enhance your resume, optimize your online presence, and deepen your understanding of what drives you professionally. Not all coaching requires a 6-month commitment. The Career Advancement Intensive is perfect for ambitious professionals who want answers and strategies quickly. Before committing, let's make sure that this program is the best option for you in my complimentary career coaching clarity call. The link will be in the show notes and description for this episode. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, I have to share a story about videoing yourself, because I cannot tell you that is the best thing that you could do. Even if you're doing something in person, just getting yourself on camera, recording yourself is so helpful. So I did a course for LinkedIn Learning with a company
Amazing.
called Madecraft, and I had to go into a studio and record. I have never done this before. I had to use a teleprompter. It was all new to me. I had never done that. I did the first pass and she was like, I think you need to watch this back. And I was like, okay, went and watched it and saw myself and heard myself and immediately knew. I was like, oh, that is not who I am. That is not what I sound like. That's not the energy that I want to give to this project. And almost immediately I was able to switch, like flip a switch and turn it on. And we recorded that section again. And she was like, oh my gosh, like who are you now? And I'm like, well, I saw myself. I'm nervous. I've never done this. There's lights, there's all this stuff. I'm nervous, but I saw myself in the video, and that was enough for me to understand what I needed to change in how I was presenting myself. So highly recommend videotaping yourself.
Absolutely.
It works. It works for sure.
Love it.
All right, let's talk about cover letters. This is such a hot topic and everybody has a different opinion. What is your opinion? Do we care about cover letters?
Honestly, it depends. At our company, we don't require cover letters for internal hiring, but some of our clients absolutely do. So if a job posting requests one or even suggest it, treat it as an opportunity, not a formality. When done right, a cover letter can truly set you apart, especially in competitive or niche roles where employers are evaluating not just experience, but motivation and communication skills. According to Job Site survey, 26% of recruiters still consider cover letters important when assessing candidates. I also think it's the lazy part of us as well. We just want you to summarize who you are, what makes you stand out, how it aligns to what we're looking for. But here's the catch. If it's a generic copy-paste template that doesn't add anything new, it won't make much of an impact. If you're going to write one, make it count. Use it to tell a story your resume cannot. Why you're excited about the company, how your values align, or what unique perspective you bring. Tools like ChatGPT, again, I know I keep saying ChatGPT, but it's wonderful, can help you get started. Just drop in the job description and your resume and ask it to draft a tailored cover letter from there. Make sure to edit it so it reflects your voice. Authenticity always resonates, and always remove at the bottom where it says, if you need any more help, let me know, or something of that gist.
Okay, I have to add to the Chat GPT thing because this has come up before. And I feel like what's helpful there is if you give Chat GPT a couple of writing samples of how you write, it has to be an authentic sample, but give it some of that information to help it mold into your voice. That is one way. Also, have
That's a great tip.
Yeah, that's helped me. That's one of the things that I do so that it understands my voice and how I speak and how I write. But also, when you're doing cover letters, to get that like more personalized side, have ChatGPT ask you questions, because like give it your resume, give it the job description, and then have it ask you questions so that it can draft something a little bit more personalized and tailored. Because I tell candidates all the time, like when I see their resume and their cover letter, I can tell if it's been written by an AI. And I don't know how I know, I just know. And I think it's just how it puts words together, how it phrases sentences. So the more information that you can feed it, the better that cover letter is going to come out for you. And to your point, please edit those. You just never know. It does weird things sometimes with sentence structure and verbiage that just doesn't sound natural.
Yeah.
And so it's really helpful to look over it a couple of times at least.
I wish we would have had this podcast a few months back when I was trying to use ChatGPT for some LinkedIn posts. And I was like, this is so not me. But maybe I became a little bit, well, this is a nice post to write and it's worded it better than what I think I sound like. But it's not authentic. It's not your true voice. So
Yeah.
I love the tips.
Yeah, I will say, and this is a tip for anybody, whether you're doing content or, something like a cover letter. I do so much video, so I have a lot of transcripts of me speaking, and I will feed it a transcript. And for you, especially, because I know you do different speaking things, I will feed it a transcript and have it write me a post in my voice based on the transcript. And so that has been something, again, it tailors more to my voice when it has a sample of how I speak, my cadence, my language, my verbiage, all of that. So if that's something, especially if you're somebody that's more verbal than, written, but you want to post content on LinkedIn, just speak it and then let ChatGPT put it together for you. I love all these little tips we're giving. This is so helpful for
I
people.
love them. I mean, the best thing about them is you can actually do something with them. So that's the best tips.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about recruiting trends. And because you have been doing recruiting for so long, I'm sure that you've seen some of this. 2020, the pandemic, that was a really big shift that we saw in the world of work, more so than in other times like, 2008, different things like that. What do you think has been some of the biggest changes from pre 2020 to now in 2025?
So recruiting has changed drastically since 2020. Before the pandemic, the process was much more traditional. Localized talent searches, mostly in-person interviews, few expectations around flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did a post just before COVID, and I said, what is the number one why for you to join a company? And before COVID, it was actually flexibility because it was so not there.
Right.
But post 2020, everything flipped. Remote work went mainstream almost overnight, which massively expanded the talent pool from 1 to 2 million people in Austin to 330 million in America. So for me, it was quite an quite something to adapt to because I'm an office person. I love being around people, even though I'm an ambivert, which is I love the extrovert part of me, but I need my time away from everybody. It's why I love dogs. And then, so for me, it did also increase competition for the top candidates globally. I've always said our job is to find the top 1%, and everyone was then looking for the top 1%. From the company side, I've noticed hiring managers are more intentional and cautious. So interview processes are longer, and there's a heavier emphasis on cultural fit and long-term alignment, specifically in the technology field, because there are a lot of what they call fake candidates who aren't actually what they say they are on the resume, which just blew my mind when I first moved to the US 10 years ago. And in fact, a report from LinkedIn shows that 88% of employers now prioritize cultural fit as much as or more than the skills that they're hiring for. Candidates also coming in with high expectations on, according to Glassdoor, again, nice factoid, 63% of job seekers prioritize work-life balance over salary. Flexibility is one of the top decision-making factors. And I don't think that's really changed, but it has increased in terms of the eyes on it. That means companies need to be crystal clear on their value proposition, what they offer beyond just compensation. And here's another key shift: employee branding. Companies that invest in building a strong brand, both externally and internally, are winning. CareerArc reports that 86% of job seekers research company reviews and ratings before they apply. Companies, if you're going out there trying to get your staff just to write Glassdoors, be careful, because if it's too heavily on the high, then they just think you're doing exactly that. Poor online presence, though, can significantly impact your ability to attract and attain and retain talent. Lastly, data is playing a much bigger role in hiring decisions, whether it's using AIs to screen CVs or platforms that track candidate engagement and funnel metrics. Recruitment today is more tech-enabled and insight-driven than ever before.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, because I think it's so important for people to understand how much has shifted, even for those of you who have been in recruiting for so long, what you're now having to navigate through the process of working with candidates and also working with companies. One thing I did want to touch on was the culture piece. I'm actually really shocked by that statistic that people are looking for more of a cultural fit, which maybe I shouldn't be because it really is an employer market. So they're looking for that fit within the company. But I want to dig into this. I don't want to spend a ton of time here, but I want to dig into that because a lot of times when people hear cultural fit, they hear discrimination or bias or something of that nature. So can you maybe define what you think that means from the candidate side, since you're, or I'm sorry, from the company side,
Yeah.
since you're having those conversations?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing question because I remember someone go, "Oh, you can't say the words cultural fit." And I'm like, well, for me, I'm the biggest believer in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when I talk about cultural fit, I want people who work hard, who want to learn and develop, and have kindness. So for me, it's not really about a cultural fit from, oh, you need to look the same or be the same. If anything, I'd love the diversity because 33% of organizations who have diversity at the heart of their business are better than the rest. So for me, I'm a big believer in that. I think what is important is that you align to the values of the organization and that you do have people when they're hiring, they are basing on a lot of the soft skills as well as the technical skills, but it can't be because you have the same gender or you're the same skin color or you believe in the same religion. So there is a big part of that. I think what has happened, Julian, more than anything I've seen is social media has said what is good and accepted and what is not. I think people every day are watching on screens, people being validated or discredited and being cancelled because of their behavior. So I think more and more it's prevalent in organizations to be good for all. Of course, I'm also touching on a very sensitive subject with the recent changes in government where DEI is being removed in many organizations. That's a shame. That's a truly disappointing thing to see. And I just believe the organizations who stay true to the core of the right values will have the right karma and the right future ahead. And I'm not suggesting in any way that those who have decided to remove DEI are bad people, but I do think it's a bad decision.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, I'm going to be having this conversation with a very good friend of mine toward the end of this season. So if this is a conversation that really strikes true to you, you want to hear more about it, her and we're going deep with it. We are going to be talking about all the things that nobody wants to talk about. We're going to be asking all the questions. So this is something that's definitely top of mind for me as well.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that conversation so that we can hopefully really get deeper with it and understand what is going on. So if that's something that interests you, make sure that you subscribe and look for that toward the end of the season. So as we move forward with this conversation, we've mentioned it before, there's a lot of desperation out there right now. Yeah. This has been a really tough job market. There's a lot of rejection going on. So what advice do you have to keep job seekers motivated through this time?
I think it's a really important question. And it is, no matter if you feel like you're just starting your career or you've been out of work for some time or you're a vice president or president looking for that next opportunity, I always say, don't worry about finding the job. Worry about the actions you take to find the job. So it's been really tough, no doubt. The market is more competitive. Hiring cycles are taking longer. And there's a lot of hurry up and wait happening. But one thing I always remind job seekers is this: rejection isn't a reflection of your worth. Often it's about timing, fit, or internal shifts you'll never even know about or see. My biggest of advice is to treat the job search like a sales pipeline. That sounds awful for some who hate sales, I get it, but it is a numbers game to some degree. The more contacts you make, the more chances you create. The more consistent target outreach you do, the more interviews you'll land. And you're not alone. According to JobScan, only 2 to 3% of applicants get called for an interview. So you're not hearing back right away. You're in the majority, not the minority. But it's also why I say try to find the hiring manager of the position. Also, keep track of the small wins. Even if it's just getting a reply, a phone screen, or a personalized feedback, it's the little things that will go a long way. It's celebrating those things on the journey towards getting that job. There's a lady called Nina Vicenti. Nina is now the vice president of e-commerce technology at Princess Cruises. When I spoke to Nina, She had no confidence. She felt like she had imposter syndrome. And it was really hard to hear this amazingly incredible woman, an executive in technology who'd been working at Royal Caribbean for, I think, 12, 13 years. And I said, treat it like that. And guess what? She got 3 offers at the end of the process. So for me, keeping those small wins is crucial, and it is a sign of progress. It builds momentum. I always tell candidates every no is just getting you closer to that right yes. Another tip is get feedback wherever you can. And even when you're in the interview, that moment is, can you please tell me about areas that I should develop on, or things that you really do think are great about me? Because sometimes it is very hard to get it afterwards. And sometimes when people reject you, they don't want to tell you. I get it. It's terrible, but that's the truth in so many instances. Treat this time as a skill building. We learn far more when it's tough than when we're winning. So either win or learn, or win or earn. Whether it's practicing interviews, tightening your resume, or networking, 75% of jobs are filled through connections. Supposedly Forbes stated this. So staying plugged into your network is just as important as applying online. Stephanie Herrera, Salesforce MVP, said, your network is your net worth. I've heard it so many times now. I've stolen it. I re-quote it. And finally, give yourself grace. This is not easy. Take breaks, celebrate the effort, and remember that a tough market doesn't mean you're not a strong candidate. Sometimes it just means you're not the right candidate for the right role right now. And you will be. I promise you will be. But tough times do not last. Tough people do.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's some of the best advice I think we've heard this season. And I want to emphasize the small wins. This is something that as candidates come to me, or as clients come to me, actually, they are so defeated by things. And in the same breath will be like, well, I had 2 interviews last week. And I'm like, wait, you had 2 interviews? I'm like, do you understand how amazing that is? And they're like, well, but I haven't gotten an offer yet or whatever. And I said, no. We are not doing that in this market. We are celebrating the interviews. We are celebrating the connections. We are celebrating all of that, because even though you got 2 interviews, I have at least 2 or 3 clients that have not heard anything back. And I hear people who have not heard anything back. So I get it. But if you're getting interviews, it means your resume is reading well to somebody. You know, you're getting through all the hundreds and thousands of applicants that are there. So yeah, I definitely want to emphasize the small wins and make sure that, you know, you're balancing that time as well, so that you don't burn out on, you know, applying to positions and all of that. So, all right. So I want to ask something kind of along these lines, especially from your point of view, because you are having so many conversations with employers and companies. What are some of the reasons that you think candidates aren't moving forward? You know, I know we've talked about the resume and the interview and all of that, but is there anything else that you feel candidates need to be doing? Or is there something that you're hearing from employers directly saying, oh, I wish candidates would do more of this?
It's a great question. So I think firstly, networking is for me the number one thing that people are not doing enough of. I give a tip to most people I speak to, especially those with a bit of experience, write down 100 people you know and just reach out to them and just say, hey, do you know anyone hiring? And do you know anyone looking? What would you do in my situation? Do you have 5 minutes for me? Sometimes not what you know, but who you know. And people are like, well, why would I reach out? I haven't spoken to that person for a few years. I say, because you would hope they would do the same when they're in this situation. And you know, they'll know you a little bit better. They'll know your experience. They'll know the type of person you are. So for me, it's so important. So networking starts at home, hands down. So many people focus on online applications, but the truth is 75, 80% of jobs are filled through networking and through connections. People hire people they trust or who come recommended. Our number one source in 24 years of recruitment is refer a friend, because we know if that person's referred, they're already being trusted. I gave, you probably might want to cut this, Julia, the next analogy I'm going to give. But when I was a young manager living in Amsterdam, I used to say, when I used to go out to nightclubs, if I tried to speak to X amount of people, I'd probably be rejected. But if I had a friend and I liked one of the friends of hers, I'd have a much better chance. References go a long, long way. You're probably going to cut that out.
I'm not going to cut that out.
Okay, great. So reach out to folks in the industry, go to events, go and say hello to that person, thank them, tell them how amazing they were, follow up afterwards, follow up after interviews, connect with hiring managers on LinkedIn. A quick message can lead to a conversation, and that conversation can lead to a job. When in doubt, send your resume out. Yeah, I know how many people, men probably not, will send it out even if they got 5 of the 10 skills, sometimes even 3. Women specifically seem to only send it unless they're 9 to 10 out of 10.
Yes.
So finally, relationships open doors that resumes alone won't.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, I have to give a little nod to my introverts, because I feel like people who hear this advice and the networking and go to events and do all of this, they're going to be like, oh no, I do not want to do that. I'm really nervous and I don't want to be around people, and I work a remote job. And, there's going to be so many different things there. Fun fact for people that don't know, I am an introvert. I know sometimes it does not come across that way, but this is my, performative podcast voice and personality, but I'm very much an introvert. And one thing that I have done throughout my professional career is find really well-connected extroverts that become like a buddy for me. And so if I do go to an event, I always try to make sure that I have an extroverted friend that knows me, that understands my professional history, so that I can just tag along with them and they do all the introductions for me. And it's great.
Well, that's amazing. Julia, that is one of the tips I was going to say. The thing that I'd also add is try to connect with the speakers before, and try to ask them for 5 minutes of their time. They usually will give you it. Try to find those who are alone by themselves and go up to them, because they're probably feeling the same as you do. And they're always that one person by themselves. The other thing that I'd also do is, like you said, and 100% agree with this, go with a friend. Go with someone that makes you feel comfortable, that maybe you'll be your wing person, your hype man, your hype lady, your cheerleader. Get them even to do the introductions. They've got nothing to lose and so much to gain for you.
Right. And I will say too, for those that feel like they don't have a network yet, this is the prompt, right? If you're listening to this, if you're seeing a post or something, this is the prompt for you to go out and start building that network. And honestly, you probably know more people than you think that you do. You just have to take a second to sit down and go through it. So like you said, 100 people, I think that sounds overwhelming. But if you think about, if you went to school, right? If you went to college, if you've had a couple of jobs already, people, if you're involved in any kind of groups or professional associations, there are people associated with that. You just don't think of them for a job because you don't work with them directly.
Yeah.
And so those are the people that you actually want to list out, because you have no idea who they know. And in some cases, you might even not know the work that they do. And so it opens up a conversation for you.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Danny, this has been amazing. This has been such wonderful information. Thank you so much for being here, for adding value to my audience. I appreciate your time so much. How can people get connected with you?
LinkedIn is really the easiest way. Follow me, connect with me, send me a message. I'll always find time if you want 30 minutes with me. It's a pleasure to help. I really feel honored when someone reaches out to me for help, because I know there's not many things I can do to help apart from recruitment and finding a job for you, or giving you the advice and tip that will make a difference and an impact in your life. And I'll always be someone who will cheerlead someone who wants that. So that's what I would, that's how to connect with me.
Yes. And one thing I will say, and I've said this on other episodes, make sure that you let Danny know that you heard about him from my podcast, because when you have that referral, when you have a reference from something, he's going to be more apt to actually respond to that, because he has a lot of followers on LinkedIn. And so I know there's a lot of messages and noise that comes through. So make sure that you're personalizing those requests so that he understands where it's coming from. Thank you so much, Danny. I so appreciate you taking the time.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me, Julia.